4.4 is looking pretty stacked with 9 characters to choose from, and in this video I'll be breaking down what are the best pulls for your account. Firstly, we have Himeko Nova, who will be available for the entire patch. I've already talked a little bit about her in my guide, but I want to go more into detail here. Himeko Nova, in terms of raw damage output, is straight up the best 3-target DPS in the game upon the release, but the reason why I don't think she is a must pull is because of a few issues in the kit. Firstly, she is really restricted by Astro Express members. Even at E2, you kinda have to use at least one to activate Verdict or Decimation, and they either are not very strong like with Sunday, or they don't have the best synergy like with Evernight. Secondly, activating Verdict or Decimation or changing between them is quite awkward because it's based on your teammates' turns. This also means if you want to use a mixed comp, you need at least 2 trail-based companions, which further restricts your team building. It doesn't help that it's based on whether her skill is active or not, and with only 3 turns, it's quite annoying Himeko has to sometimes waste an assist skill just to refresh it. Lastly, she needs to use her ultimate to refresh her cost-free assist skills, but her energy rotations are extremely awkward. At E0, you will often find that Himeko Nova is already at max energy, but you want to apply your teammates' buffs, so you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. As a result, in actual gameplay, Himeko Nova will waste a bunch of energy here and there, which can hurt her down the line. And at E2, it's even worse, you gain way too much energy, so you are kinda forced to use her ultimate earlier for the later parts of your rotation, so that you don't waste too much energy. Seeing as Molten Axe Blade has energy overflow and a ton of other quality of life features in this kit, it's just really puzzling to me why Himeko Nova doesn't, because it does hurt her performance in gameplay, which also reduces her damage in theory. And that is why I'm not completely sold on Himeko Nova yet. Don't get me wrong, she will be strong, especially for free-to-play players, since a lot of trail-based companions are free-to-play friendly. I'm mostly worried about her performance down the line. I'm not sure if she'll be extremely strong for a patch or two and then just kinda die down when the other premium teams like Elation or Follow-Up are fully complete, and then she might become a similar case to Finon. Because she is tied to trail-based companions, there is a little bit of future-proofing there, but I'm not sure if that's enough. So right now, as of patch 4.4, she is a pretty good pull, 7 to 8 out of 10 pull for me. Not quite an insanely high value pull like Molten Axe Blade, but still pretty strong in my opinion, and also has very high scaling Edegons and a very good light cone. Next, for the phase 1 banners, we have Dunheng PT, Sparxie, and Evernight. So let me get this out of the way. Vertical investment for sustains like Dunheng PT are almost never worth it. The only real exception so far is Hoho E1. If you don't already have him, I think Dunheng is only a decent pull if you missed him for free back in 3.6, otherwise I would stay far away from his banner. However, you can also get Nova Flat Hoho from the shop, and we have yet to get a new sustain from the 4.x patches, so if you are willing to make do with a 4-star healer like Gallagher and maybe Hoho from the shop, I think you can skip him entirely. Evernight is still one of the best DPS units in the game, both as a main DPS and in the Mono Remembrance team. However, recently the meta has been tipping away from Remembrance slightly, hence I only recommend pulling Evernight if you have at least Cyrene plus Hycene, ideally if you also have Casteris to complete the full Remembrance team. If you want to brute force lower target stages, E1 Evernight is extremely powerful for doing that, but the real prize is her second Edegon, as it can pretty much double her damage in gameplay. A signature light cone is the more debatable one. It's one of those more comfortable kind of investments, extra energy, defense ignore, HP and damage boost. It's much stronger in full Remembrance teams, but still great for maintaining higher uptime on her ultimate, which helps contribute to the bulk of her damage. Hence, I still personally think it's a pretty high value light cone. Sparxie, our first Elation DPS, is already rerunning, but now that we have Evernisha and Silverwolf, her value does drop quite a bit. Right now, I think Sparxie is only really good when played with Silverwolf level 999, so if you do not have her, I would probably skip Sparxie entirely, unless you want to slowly build towards that team. At E0S0, she isn't that big of an upgrade over Elation MC, but at E0S1, it can already be a significant difference and will continue to widen the gap with E1 and E2. I don't think E1 is too insane, but E2 is where Sparxie really does numbers, especially with Silverwolf, because she can stack punchlines extremely quickly, and is one of the best investments for that team. The issue is that the E1 is in the way. Overall, I would only recommend getting Sparxie if you are absolutely sure you are investing into Silverwolf 999 teams, and ideally E0S1. I do not recommend getting extra Edegons unless you already have a E1 going up to E2. For phase 2 banners, we are starting with Cerydra. The past few patches, I've never really rated her that highly, since she was only really good with Finon and Anaxa, and those teams have been falling off quite a bit. She has seen a little increase in usage with Ceres Nova Flare, and now in certain niche situations can be quite strong with Himeko Nova. Unfortunately, it's quite hard to slot Cerydra there because Himeko Nova is extremely restrictive. Overall, I think it's only worth getting Cerydra if you already have Finon or Anaxa, or you are a hyper-invested Celie main, because I do not think Cerydra is a good pull just for Himeko Nova. Cerydra's S1 isn't a very high value pull either, since they released a free-to-play light cone for her, and she can still use dance quite effectively. Her notable Edegons are E1 and E6, however the only really decent Edegon in my opinion for the cost is E1, since it can give up to 36% defense ignore, while the other Edegons focus a bit more on Cerydra's individual damage, which is not what you want from your supports. So at most you grab E1, but there are much better value Edegons in this patch like E2 Himeko or E1 E2 Evernight, so I think it's still much better for your account to invest into the newer units rather than into Cerydra. Anaxa, like I said, has been falling off a little bit since the new Elation DPSs are also bounce units. It does still do really good when the occasion arises, like against the Flame Weaver stage, but it's only downhill from here for Anaxa until his Nova Flare or a new support comes around. Anaxa's Edegons are also very average, and like Cerydra, he also came with a free-to-play light cone, so I do not recommend any extra vertical investment into Anaxa. Again, it would be better to pull new units like Motonex or Himeko Nova than to build an Anaxa team from scratch. And the last unit on this patch is Aventurine. Anyways, there will be the Fate Collab again this patch. 2 new Fate characters will be releasing, Rin and Gilgamesh. They are both quite tied to the previous Fate characters Saber and Archer, and mainly serve as upgrades and best in-slot teammates to those units. Once again, there will be a free 5-star you can choose, Gilgamesh or Archer. I will be making a separate video for the Fate characters, going really into detail how strong they are in the meta and whether they will be worth your pulls or not. But for now, I do think both Gilgamesh and Rin are massive upgrades for the existing Saber and Archer teams. But if you already have Archer from the previous Fate collab and you are planning to get Rin, E1 Archer is actually quite a low value Eidolon. This is also due to Sparkle's Nova Flare. Archer with Rin and Sparkle can easily use 5 skills in a single action, and the extra skill points will then just go to Rin, who can't make very good use of it. This is why I recommend getting Gilgamesh as your free unit, especially if you have Saber in this case. Unless you want to pull E2 Archer and above, then it can help you get to those Eidolons faster. Right now, I do think Rin and Gilgamesh are really strong when paired with the other Fate characters, but in general, I still only recommend pulling or choosing them if you are committed to building that Saber or Archer team respectively. Overall, I think Himeko Nova and Evernight have the highest pull values, with Rin, Gilgamesh and Sparxie fairly close behind, Dunheng, PT, Cerydra and Anaxa as mid-value pulls, and Aventurine as obviously by far the worst pull this patch. For vertical investment, excluding the Fate characters, Himeko Nova E2, Himeko S1, Evernight E2, and Sparxie E2 are the highest priority if you are one Eidolon away. This is followed closely by Sparxie S1, E1, Evernight S1, and E1. Himeko Nova E1 can be kinda useful, but performance-wise it's just not that good of an Eidolon, and it's more of a stepping stone to E2. From here on, I don't really recommend vertical investment anymore and would rather you just save your pulls for the upcoming patch. Hopefully this provides better clarity when planning your pulls this patch, but as always, thanks for watching.